All right, what's up, Dragon Brood? As you know, we're between releases here. We're waiting the next, 4 days, 5 days till we get the set Kamigawa Neon Destiny on Arena. But you know what? We still have decks to talk about, so I'm going to be rolling out decks every day, multiple times a day. So be sure you like, subscribe, all that good stuff to make sure you don't miss any of the new deck lists that are going to come out to make sure that you have a head start on what to build with the next set, and you kind of know what cards to target, all that good stuff. But anyway, today we're going to be talking about vehicles, because this is something we've not really been able to do since Kaladesh, and even then you kind of just splashed a vehicle, but I don't think we really had the cards to make a full vehicle deck. Now we do. So let's go hop in and take a look at what vehicles might look like with the release of Kamigawa Neon Destiny. Dynasty, we got to get that right. Alright, now the biggest problem you're going to have with this deck when you build it is that you're going to need both vehicles and creatures to pilot those vehicles. Otherwise, you also need to put other cards in the deck that allow you to crew the vehicles in the event that board sweepers, spot removal, whatever happens, so you still don't have vehicles just sitting around doing nothing. And I think we found some ways to solve that. So starting at the top, we're playing 4 Hot Shot Mechanic. This is one of the new cards in the set. It's a 2/1 for 1, and it actually is able to crew vehicles as though it were 2 greater power. So up to 4 if necessary, but you likely won't need that in most cases, except for if you want to use this straight up by itself to crew like a chariot, I believe. Now, the next card I decided to play here is Cathar Commando. And give me a second to explain this here, because it's not the best Magic card, but we do have a couple of vehicles that actually need 3 crew instead of 2. So this helps with that. We also know there's going to be a lot of artifacts and enchantments. This is a creature you can use to sacrifice it and destroy an artifact or an enchantment. So it allows you to keep playing creatures when you're not going to have a lot of room for spells to be those versatile cards there. This gives you an out for some things. The other thing is that it has flash. And what I like about that, it was very important in this deck, is that your opponent now is going to be in a tougher spot trying to decide if they can attack or not. Because they might want to attack thinking you don't have a way to crew a thing, but now you could actually flash in the commando, then crew one of your vehicles and get a block in. Right, so I like everything this can do for the list. It's a little bit different, like I said, but I think this is a card that can work in this style of deck. Now, Ingenious Smith is a 2-mana 1/1. You get to look at the top 4 cards of your library. You get to put one in your hand. Every time you play an artifact, it gets +1/+1. Well, since we're playing a lot of artifacts, which is what the vehicles are, I'm going to go ahead and give this card a run. So we're playing 3 of those just to see maybe if this works in this type of list. It's good because it lets one of your smaller creatures just grow over the course of the game, and it can help you find the additional vehicle that you're looking for. I don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to give it a shot. Now we have Kitsune Ace for 4. This is a common out of the new set, 2-mana 2/2. It is a pilot for whatever that matters, and whenever you crew a vehicle, whenever a vehicle we control attacks, we get 2 choices here. We can either give the vehicle first strike, or we can untap Kitsune Ace. This is cool for 2 reasons. One, if we just know our opponent's going to have a hard time blocking, or maybe they might be double blocking, we can go and give ours first strike to make sure they can't kill our vehicle. The other thing is, if we don't need that, we can untap Kitsune Ace and have the option to crew on defense, which is also pretty important. So either way, this ability should work. I will admit, though, of all the creatures we're playing, this is probably the least interesting of them. So if there was something else you wanted to put in the slot, I don't think I would argue with it too much. Okay, moving on down here, we've got Cosima, God of the Voyage. And the reason we're playing this really is because it's also a vehicle on the backside. Now, this is one of those things where people forgot about the Omen Keel because it hasn't really fit into many deck lists. But here, it's a vehicle we can crew pretty easy. So if we already have a couple of early creatures out, then it makes sense to go ahead and play the Omen Kill and just go for it. And it lets us get more land from the opponent, whatever. Otherwise, we can just play Cosima in a pinch and just have another creature to crew something with. So I actually like the versatility of this card in this deck. I don't really have a problem with it. Now, this is where we start getting into the vehicles, which is like the chunky part of the deck. So we have Mobilizer Mech. It's a colorless and a blue for flying 3/4. And whenever it becomes, excuse me, when it becomes crewed, up to one other target vehicle you control becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. Basically meaning that whenever you crew this, you can go ahead and cruise or make something else an artifact creature. Basically, you can attack or block with it. So more versatility here, kind of like giving you outs in case you don't have but one pilot. This gives you the opportunity to crew multiple things, which is kind of cool. Does crew for 3, so you do need to have any of your creatures. Like, you won't be able to do it with the Kitsune Ace, but you will be able to do it with either of your first 2 creatures that we talked about. So something to point out there. Now we're playing 4 copies of Imperial Recruiter Recovery Unit. It's 2 colorless and a white, 3/4. And whenever you attack with it, you can actually return a vehicle card with, or creature. It says creature or vehicle. Actually, I thought it just said vehicle, but creature or vehicle with power, mana cost 2 or less from the graveyard to your hand. This is cool because it crews easily for 2. And it basically lets you return any of your creatures. So if you have something that gets spot removaled early, you can return it back to your hand and have the opportunity to play it again. Or even return a Mobilizer Mech. Any of those are reasonable options, but it's basically free value. Speaking of free value, we have Prodigy's Prototype. It's also a 3/4 for a colorless, blue and a white. It's a vehicle. And then whenever one or more vehicles you control attack, you get to make a 1/1 creature token that is also a pilot and crews for 2 greater. So basically it can crew for 3. But this is another card I like because, again, it generates creatures, so you don't have to worry about sweepers as much. You can keep having ways to crew your vehicles. And just blockers if you need it, right? Like, you can attack with the vehicle, still have a blocker on the backside. So all those are really good reasons. Obviously, we're going to be playing Eska's Chariot because, well, it makes 2 cats, which happen to be convenient crews for vehicles. And Chariot also itself lets you copy tokens, but unfortunately the only tokens we're going to be able to copy are our cats, really. So not much going on there, but it is a 4/4 as well, so nothing to turn our nose up at. And because we have pilots that can crew as though their power were larger and all that, like, there is possibilities that you will be able to crew this with just the 1 creature, and that's actually pretty nice. So efficiency matters. Now, if you notice, we aren't playing a lot of removal in this deck, so I did want to squeeze in 3 copies of Search Hacker Mech here, which is 4 colorless, 5/5. It has Menace, and when it enters the battlefield, it deals damage equal to twice the number of vehicles you control to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. So, yeah, most of the time you're probably going to be doing 4 or 6. Not a whole lot, but it does matter. Now, another card we came across here was Armed and Armored, and this card's actually pretty interesting. It's a colorless and a white for an instant that vehicles you control become artifact creatures until end of turn. If you have a dwarf, you can choose a dwarf you control and equip any number of stuff to it. We don't really have the dwarf part. That's never going to be a thing. But being able to effectively crew any number of vehicles you want for just 2 mana at instant speed is pretty nice. So even in the event you don't have creatures, it's very possible you can still just get a solid block in, or maybe a big attack for a win. Maybe your opponent sweeps the board, then next turn you still get to attack with 3 vehicles, right? So we like that. Plus, you have some stuff that triggers, like, when you attack with a vehicle. Like, that's a thing that could still possibly get you a creature back in your hand. Or, who knows, a ton of different things. You know, maybe create another pilot, like we talked about with one of them, right? So this opens up the door for a lot of things. Other things here are just lands. Nothing real surprising. We're playing a bunch of different multi-lands here, kind of all over the place. The only thing really is there's 1 new Ainganjo, and then, of course, we're playing the Mech Hanger, which is a color, taps for a colorless or taps to add a mana of any color, but you have to spend it to play a pilot or a vehicle, which is a big chunk of our deck. And you can pay 3 and tap it to also basically crew a vehicle till end of turn. So that's actually pretty sweet too. So even if we run out of creatures, we have these other options to help us create creatures or crew the vehicles directly, which we like a bunch. Now, can this deck be played with black in it for the 3 mana 4/3 that returns a vehicle from your yard or whatever? Absolutely, you could find a way to squeeze that in here. I built it the way I did though for two reasons. One, I wanted some level of consistency, trying to make it easy to splash the other cards without having to play a fourth or a fifth color. Also, we're not playing that many new rares and mythics, so though we're playing a lot of new cards, a very large chunk of them are commons and uncommons. There's a few rares and mythics out of the new set in here, but not a lot, so this should also be an easy version to build for people who already own a few cards, but maybe want to play vehicles also, and that's a big thing. The other issue here is, like we talked about, kind of with playing the Commando and some other cards like that, it gives you a good bit of versatility and flexibility, which I think is really nice, that we may not have in some of the other versions, right? Being able to destroy some artifacts and enchantments, having creatures at flash speed, right? That's also good. Having the creatures or the vehicles that all work off of each other, returning each other, crewing each other, getting extra pilots, you know, all that. I think that's pretty important too. So in the early stages, you should be able to have enough creatures to attack and block with, but at the same time, have enough tricks that you don't end up stranded with just vehicles on board that don't do anything. At least that's the hope. But let me know down in the comments what you think about this deck. Were there other cards you wanted to see included in here? Is there something that I included that you were surprised by? Or are there just other decks you really want to see this season? Any of that makes for good discussion, so let me know down in the comments. And as always, if you would be so kind as to check them out, consider joining the channel. For as little 99 cents, you can support me here and helps with all the work we're going to be putting in all these deck lists. But even if you can't do that, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Most importantly, remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell and choose all notifications, because I'm going to have a lot of decks coming out over the next few days, and you definitely don't want to miss one. But that's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.